I wanted to respond to this challenge that Harold extended.
Oh,
Pringle threw him
yes.
under the bus a few days ago in Parliament and asked me about the Odebrecht scandal. So I was able to respond and to expose Harold Lovell's relationship with Franca and by extension Bank and Odebrecht, since they're one in the same group. And apparently Harold got all caught up over it because he was experienced. So he was, what am I saying now? I guess he was, at the time I'm looking for, he was embarrassed. And he then came up with this concoction that I cannot say what I said in Parliament on the radio, otherwise you'll sue me. The interesting thing is everything I said in Parliament, I said on Point FM
You have said
on
it
numerous
here.
occasions.
You have said it here on
So
numerous occasions, correct?
I, I have decided to repeat what I said in Parliament so that he can proceed with his litigation because I know that the truth is still a defense. And I actually challenged Love as well to quote anything that I said yesterday, not yesterday, a few days ago in Parliament, um, with his involvement with Franco, who was the key man for Odebrecht in Antigua and Barbuda, and Manuel Bank, that I did not say on Point FM. Now, I would have indicated that Harold acknowledged that Harold, met with Franco, the head of Odebrecht money laundering operations in Antigua, that he met him some time ago in Miami. And that, we all know that billions of graft money were laundered by Odebrecht through Antigua Overseas Bank and Mindel Bank, while Harold Lovell was finance minister. Those are known facts. And that the UPB administration, which Harold Lovell served as de facto deputy, appointed Franca as an ambassador with a diplomatic passport. My government subsequently revoked his appointment. Now, I also said that Lovell was on the group's payroll for several months and that he needs to indicate what services, precisely what services he performed to get that kind of money. If I'm not mistaken, it's about $4,500 a month that he was getting. And Senator Jupiter should have those documents somewhere around that he can probably pull up to show the evidence that Harold Lovell was paid by the group. I also said that Lovell acted in his personal capacity and that the issue of bribery would not have arisen. So this notion that we should have a public inquiry to prove his guilt is nonsensical. It is just a red herring across the trail. So here's he saying, if he's guilty, we should call a commission of inquiry to prove that Harold Lovell, is guilty. When he was not a public official, he acted in his personal capacity. And I don't know if there's a case in which the crooks were trying to crook the crooks. So that's a different ball game. Now, Franca said in Brazilian court, and I'm now accounting for the situation in which some officials said in court that that apparently the money was intended for me, some money that they may have actually sent to a company controlled by Casroy James. But Franca said in the Brazilian court that they never discussed any bribery or bribe action with me. They never asked me to do anything. I never gave them any undertaking. I never solicited any payment from them. I never received any payment from them. So that's documented in the Brazilian courts that there's no involvement. Now, people from time to time, make requests in the name of the prime minister. And this is not the first time it would have happened. I recall when I first got elected in 2014 as prime minister, there was a particular person who I appointed as an ambassador, and he got on to an investor and made a request for certain sums in exchange for a particular favor. I had to fire him when it was brought to my attention. So it is not unusual for people to go and call the names of others. But what I can say definitively is that it never happened. I never held any discussions with anyone. I never received any payment from Odebrecht, directly or indirectly. I never sent anyone to speak with them. And, as far as I'm concerned, there's really nothing for me to answer. Now, I also indicated that government officials, including myself, that we all acted with probity. And therefore, there's no mens rea. If we had done something wrong, and let us understand what the Odebrecht officials wanted. They wanted the prime minister to give instructions to stop ONDCP from sharing the information with the Brazilian law enforcement that would have incriminated Odebrecht officials. No such intervention was ever made. In fact, Colonel Croft would have issued a statement to that effect. And the reality is, I had no locus over the matter. So those who were hatching the plot to stop the flow of information to Brazil, they did not even understand the process. That the central authority for receiving those documents is the Attorney General, who in turn would consult with the Director of Public Prosecution. Then the documentation will be passed on to ONDCP to be actioned. And that is precisely what happened. In fact, at one point, the documents were on the Attorney General's desk for over 30 days. And it was the former immigration officer, Annette Mark, who brought it to my attention that the Brazilians were agitating. And I promptly got on to the Attorney General at the time to ask him to action it right away. At that time, I had no knowledge about no Odebrecht and no car wash investigation, but it was just the nature of how I operated, why I was able to act quickly. So, as I said, there was no mens rea. No one can say that we acted without probity. And contrary to what the Odebrecht officials desired, Antiguan law enforcement actually shared information with Brazilian law enforcement. Ultimately, these people were incriminated. Many of them went to jail. I have no doubt in my mind that there was a plan to probably offer a bribe. But I mean, as to how they did it, who they spoke with, that I can't vouch for. I mean, they reckon that the discussions took place at the Biltmore Hotel. I have never been there. Harold Lovell is far more familiar with the Biltmore Hotel than I am, because he would have met Franca there. And he would have held certain discussions with Franca. Franca was a man who presided over the money laundering. He was actually head of the structured operations here, in which billions of dollars were laundered to pay graft to various officials globally. So it is Harold who had a relationship with him, not me. So it's a Harold to account. And again, I'm not saying that he did anything illegal. All I'm saying is that he had a relationship with these crooks. He would have acted on their behalf, and he ought to have further information. He was actually paid. Now, it was also said, too, that certain funds would have been paid by some Brazilians. And for some reason, I don't know, when they look at the term Brazilians, they already see it. These Brazilians were Odebrecht, Meinel, Franca, one and the same. But my understanding is that certain funds were promised for campaign funding. And that was brought to my attention by Donna, based on discussions that she had with a particular person. And as a consequence of that, certain conclusions have been drawn. But again, even if funds were promised for the UPP campaign, I can't say that represented any form of criminal action. And at no point we ever said that Harold Lovell did anything criminal. We're just saying what we know about it and his involvement. Now, in the case of the 3 million euros that were paid to Kazroy categorically denied that it was any bribe payment. He said it was a CIP-related transaction. And, he's the one who was holding those funds in escrow. Now, I can't vouch for that. I don't know. But if Harold chooses not to believe Kazroy, he has his right not to. However, in the absence of evidence to the contrary, he's asking me to institute an expensive witch hunt with little value or probability of success. And he's asking me to do so during this critical period of COVID. So I don't know how I could justify a public inquiry, which obviously cannot be used to convict anyone. I mean, Lovell et al. Well know that a public inquiry is extremely expensive, and it's not a justifiable expense in the circumstances, and more so during this period of COVID. So may as well he had kept his mouth shut, because, I don't know why Pringle threw him under the bus and asked those questions or that question a few days ago. It suggests to me that the hierarchy of the UPP, they're probably holding Harold Lovell with suspicion. They obviously don't want to, to rock the boat too hard, recognizing that I could call elections at any time. But I think they're just waiting for the opportune time to dispose of Lovell, because I don't see how Pringle could have brought that question to the Parliament to expose Harold to take all them blows to the extent that he started to scream and now threatening or coming with an idle threat, which is obviously designed to obfuscate, because if he was serious, he would not have said so. I mean, here am I repeating precisely what I said in the Parliament, and I can guarantee the people that Harold can't sue me because everything I say is factual. And I don't know why he would have risked that challenge, knowing that he's going to lose. I mean, I find Harold to be very reckless. He takes some silly risk. All he had to do is to just cool. I mean, even the issue there about taking Donna to court as well. I mean, he'd be foolish to do so, because when Donna finished asking for disclosure and to disclose all his financial affairs, you never can tell what may show up. I mean, this guy is evidently not a good thinker. He's a good talker. You got to give him that. He can expound and regurgitate things that are said to him with good clarity and accuracy. But in terms of thinking strategically and any depth of serious thinking, he just doesn't have it. I mean, he's not leadership material. And the UPP, they know that. I guess they're stuck with him. And with all fairness to the UPP itself, they have such a rotten slate of candidates that, Harold Lovell is a one-eyed king in there. But again, I guess they're treating him with increased suspicion. And when you look at the situation there too, with the other Brazilian connection with the Andre Guterres, Andrade Guterres, in which we spent $94 million sprucing up the whole airport and adding 1,000 linear feet to our airport runway. There's no doubt. You don't even have to have an inquiry to know that that is a ripoff. And Harold Lovell was in there as the minister who witnessed the construction contract. He was in there as the minister who signed the loan document, paying as much as 13%, which at the time, Andrade Guterres, they argued it was their cost of fund was 13% when interest rates were at a historical low. So, this guy obviously doesn't have the type of competence to govern. In that transaction alone, the country would have lost at least $50 million. Where are we going with him? I mean, if you can't even protect public resources, I mean, how are you going to now present yourself as a leader? To lead us to where? To lead us up a gum tree? Shaman.